Danny, Newcastle in a bit of trouble, aren't they? In fact, big trouble. I hear this morning from inside the club that Steve Bruce is 100% committed to carrying on in the job. And I also hear from inside the club that the players are 100% behind them. Is there any reason to doubt that either of those two facts are indeed fact?
Well, you can judge the players based on their performances, can't you? Are they giving enough physically, or are they just suffering from a huge lack of quality in the squad? I've not seen a group of players not trying. I've seen a group of players who are really struggling for confidence and lacking in quality. That's what I've seen. I talked earlier in the season, give Steve Bruce a little support regarding the position they were in. They were in a reasonable position in the league, and I do think that if they'd kept Wilson and Maximum fit, they probably wouldn't be in the problems they are. But since then, I have to say I've kept an eye on Newcastle, and although they've had the injuries, their level of performance has been really poor.
Yeah,
you know, there was a little bit of improvement for a few weeks, but then since they've come up against quality opposition, they've been really poor. And I don't think Steve would still be in a job if the fans were in the stadium. I think they've had enough. I don't doubt he's given his all, but ultimately what he's got to work with and the way he sets them up isn't working.
Well, what we do know, Danny, is the fans were certainly outside the stadium, St James's Park, on Saturday night because banners calling for his head were put up. Certainly Steve Bruce was asked on Saturday if he had indeed ever thought about walking away.
I've never thought of myself when you're managing. I think if I'm not one because it's tough to walk away from it. You know, it's not in my nature. So I will never walk away from it because it's too tough. I will accept the responsibility, and because it rightly rests at my door. And today, simply, we weren't good enough on the night, and that's the frustration that I feel this evening.
So, Simon, you know Steve Bruce very well, of course you do.
Yeah.
For many, many years.
Yep.
I think he's being brutally honest there. He's sticking to it.
Sure.
He wants to try and see it out, and he wants to try and play his part in keeping Newcastle United in the Premier League. But something's got to give. Why are Newcastle United, as Danny alluded to, why are they failing to turn up in what, after all, are do-or-die fixtures?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. You know, first and foremost, you know, you're moving into Steve is moving into the territory of the red line, i.e., you know, he is in a situation where you're now at the point where, as an owner, you're looking very, very carefully at whether you're better off without him than you are with him, and what that looks like. Because, of course, 4 or 5 weeks ago, to certain groups of Newcastle fans, the reasons why they beat Everton was because of Graham Jones. The reasons why they beat Southampton was because of Graham Jones's inclusion. And they will have a closed mind. I look at the Newcastle perspective, and you are in a territory now where Steve has not done enough. The players aren't good enough to my view, but he, as a manager, has made choices at times and decisions and said things in the media that I would be uncomfortable for him to have said. I would have been uncomfortable for him to have felt the necessity to say, I'm doing it my way, the gloves are off, because I think that leads you to one conclusion. It leads you to ridicule and parody. You can say that to the players, you can say it in private, you don't need to say it to the media. That's a reaction. I look at the group of players and I think you isolate the game, and of course the whole narrative is Brighton. Brighton are not a crap side. Brighton are a very good side that's battered every single team they've played in the last 4 or 5 weeks and couldn't score a goal. They've scored goals in this game because they've scored 2 worldies from outside the box that previously they weren't scoring, and they've made the game look, you know, very poor for Newcastle. But by the same token, Newcastle were dreadful in that game, and they've been dreadful in other games. And at what point does professional pride kick in for these players? And at what point does it become all about the manager? There's a balance to be had. You know, Steve is walking... my view, I don't know why he wants to be there. They didn't want him there in the first place. They didn't want him in the job. They wanted Rafa Benitez or anybody that flies in the face of Mike Ashley. They don't want Mike Ashley there. He's the central theme. Anybody that Mike Ashley appoints that doesn't go against Mike Ashley, the Newcastle fans are going to dislike. So I don't know why he wanted to go there in the first place. Besides, he couldn't resist the temptation of managing his home club. His character won't allow him to walk away from the job. Is he doing a brilliant job? Well, they're 4th from bottom in the league, right? So one would suggest that he's not doing a brilliant job. But there are also sides that are there that have spent significantly more money than Newcastle spent this season that are not punching their weight. Fulham are in third from bottom of the league. They may be in a slight form of ascendancy. I still think Newcastle will get out of this, and I think Fulham will get relegated. But we're in a territory now where what are you trying to achieve with Steve? He is so damaged in the eyes of certain segments of Newcastle fans that no matter what he achieves going forward, unless you're going to back him unequivocally and give him hundreds of millions of pounds of players, which certain segments of Newcastle fans will say we wouldn't want it in Steve Bruce's hands.
Yeah.
It's a difficult
I don't
one.
think it is a certain segment, Simon. I think now it's got to a point where it's the vast majority. And I think if you listen to,
right.
I think if you listen to them, it's not so much the position they're in, and
it's the way they're playing.
It's the way they go about it,
Yeah.
And I think there's some validity in that, because we all like watching football a certain way, and results business, and as owners, you're looking at staying in the league, and Palace is a good example of that. Palace aren't great to watch, but Royal keep them in the league.
Yep.
But Newcastle fans would rather be Brighton at the moment, watching their team try and play the right way and being a bit unlucky.
But if you've
going
got the
after
personnel to do that, that's fine. But let me ask you a question. If you're a player, a Newcastle player, is there any parallel universe, do you believe, that you've been sent out to put a performance out as abject as you put out on Saturday? Where does it become, and I'm not defending Steve here because I think he's very close now to a decision, if I was in charge of Newcastle, where I'd be saying, as much as I like you, as much as I knew what you once were before, we're moving into the territory where this ain't working for either one of us. You're getting abused left, right and centre. The team isn't functioning.
So you would sack him after Saturday night?
No, I would be in the territory now where I'd be very seriously considering it. But I'm asking Danny as a player, you walk across onto that white line, your manager tells you this is a must-win game. That team looked lacklustre, tepid, and had nothing about it. Where is the line between what players put out on the pitch and what managers are entirely responsible for?
I think it's always a balance. I don't think it can always be one. I believe wholeheartedly that the majority of the way the players conduct themselves and the output they give is dictated to by the leader, which is the manager.
Yep.
I don't believe in the narrative that you don't have the players to play a certain way. That Newcastle squad could play the same way Brighton play if they're worked on and they're trusted and encouraged to play that way. Now you could say, well, that player for Brighton in that position's, but Newcastle don't have that player or that player. But ultimately, I think a lot of coaches and a lot of clubs hide behind that excuse of, I don't have the players to play that way. Everyone's got players who want to play decent football, and football is evolving. The best teams all play the right way. This is the argument with Tottenham in terms of their pragmatism and their negativity, if you like, and their supporters. It's the same with the Newcastle supporters. They're not enjoying what they watch, so the results become irrelevant to a degree.
Yeah.
And I think Palace is another example of that. And you know what I think of Roy and how much I respect the man. But I think even Palace fans, if they'd have been in that stadium this season, would have got to a point where they would have been sick of watching. Because more often than not recently, Palace have been playing. I mean, they're out. They're always going to be out of it because they're so well organised defensively, and they've got better quality on the break and stuff. But fans now demand a certain way of playing football. There's not too many groups of support. Even West Brom, when you think back to when Pulis was there and how irate the fans were, it's football's evolved now. People want an experience when they go and watch football. There's not too many fans who come on our radio now and say, result at all costs.
Well, 2 wins in 20 is not an experience that the Newcastle fans are enjoying, Danny. That is for sure. Danny tuned in is one of many messages that I'm seeing in front of me. Danny Murphy, thank you for your words on Newcastle United. You are absolutely spot on.